Hello, friends. Welcome to the very first episode of The Story of Everything. I'm Timothy Dean Leininger. What is the story of everything? One way of saying it is that it's the true story of good versus evil in our universe, told in the style of an epic saga. Another way of saying it is that it's a meditation on the meaning of life from the biggest possible perspective, or a tour of all of space and time with the time-traveling angel as our tour guide. Let me give you sort of the blurb and brief bio that you see on the back cover of books. And the story of everything is going to be a book. But before I do that, I want to say that this podcast, video book, or whatever you want to call it, is for everyone, whether you're religious or not, and regardless of what particular religion you are. Now, because this story of everything starts with the origin of the universe, it considers both the scientific and religious and philosophical aspects of the universe's origin. Religion and philosophy, after all, are things that exist, and this is the story of everything. So if you're an atheist or agnostic or seeking, I hope you won't tune out just yet. I hope you'll give it a try. You can always skip the more religious and philosophical episodes anyway, but I hope you'll check them out. The information there might be different from what you expect. And if you're an evangelical six-day creationist, so on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, I hope you'll stick around too, even if we cover the Big Bang and evolution, because it's important to understand these things correctly if you're going to try to argue against them. And maybe you'll find out that modern science doesn't challenge your faith after all. And besides, we're also going to see the literal account of creation as told in Genesis, because it's so rich with meaning and profound truths. Okay, here's the back cover blurb and my bio. The Story of Everything, Volume 1, In the Beginning. An angel named Sophia takes an adventurer named Aleph back to the beginning of time to see the story of humanity's creation. They start with the creation of the heavenly court, witness the Big Bang, and see the formation of the solar system. They then follow the ancestor of humanity as it evolves from the first living cell to the first animal to venture onto land, to the first mammal fighting for survival in the age of the dinosaurs. Finally, they see the birth of Adam and Eve and the origin of evil in the epic war between the good and bad angels as told in all the most ancient Jewish and Christian writings. Along the way, Sophia builds spectacular sets to illustrate for Aleph the beginnings of the Philosophia Perennis, the classical philosophy that formed the minds of the greatest saints, thinkers, leaders, and artists in history, but that has largely been forgotten today. She shows him the marvelous order of everything that exists, and all the branches of human knowledge as one harmonious whole. Big history is a recent trend in education that tells the story of the universe from the Big Bang to the evolution of systems of ever greater complexity. This is a secular trend that sees humans and their society as mere mechanical flows of energy. The story of everything could be called a cosmic history because it tells the story of both heaven and earth, and it presents the entire universe as ordered to God, who is humanity's happiness and who answers our deepest questions about the meaning of life. Okay, here's my bio, the boring part. I'll try to make it quick. I studied philosophy at Wheaton College, where I received my bachelor's degree, and I studied theology and film at Duke University, where I received my master's degree. In 2007, I contributed to the essay anthology Quentin Tarantino and Philosophy. In 2009, my first book was published, The Week That Changed the World, a day-by-day account of Holy Week. I wrote those under the name Roth, by the way, in honor of my mother's side of the family. For this series, I'm embracing my Alsatian German heritage and going with my paternal name, which is Leininger. Anyway, from 2009 to 2018, I worked for ResearchSquare.com, editing thousands of journal articles from scientists around the world on astronomy, geology, evolution, climate, computer science, and economics. So basically, I have one foot in the science world and one in the humanities world. Plus, I have a couple astrophysicist friends who helped me out here and there. I helped build the Great Books curriculum at George Fox University and taught a classical philosophy class there in 2018 called Introduction to Everything. I've recently commissioned and edited the first English translation of Edward Hugon's classic commentary on the 24 Thomistic Theses, a summary of the core principles of the Philosophia Perennis. In summer 2023, I taught the Introduction to the Creed class at Kino Catechetical Institute in Phoenix, and I should mention I've spent the last 8 years researching and writing this first volume of the Story of Everything. The last 4 years were spent working on it full time, which is why I can't afford to decorate my walls. The lessons on the Philosophia Perennis won't start until chapter 10, but I want to mention here that they're sort of like the Jedi lessons in Star Wars, except they're a real part of our galaxy's history, and they have real power to enlighten, strengthen, and liberate your mind. And on that note, if you're involved in teaching young people classical education, I think you'll find these videos useful as well. After all, this is the book I wish I'd discovered in some wizard's attic when I was 14 years old. And since that book didn't exist, I had to make it myself. Before we get started, I want to mention that the adventurer in this story is a character named Aleph, after the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet, which is also the first letter in this book. It's also a nod to Generation Alpha, who might be the ones to build a civilization of love after we've totally destroyed ours. Aleph tells the story in the first person. Who is Aleph? It's you and me. That's why I don't provide any details about Aleph. Aleph is you, the reader. I'm not doing this to be politically correct. Political correctness, after all, is a cheap counterfeit of real love. I just genuinely want every person on earth to feel invited to be the I going on this journey. So if this ever turns into movies or TV shows, I guess maybe we'll randomly pick someone to play Aleph, and maybe it could be a different person for each show. Finally, each episode is a chapter of the book, and I'll be posting one episode per week, probably on weekends. I'll have to miss some weeks, and maybe I'll double up others, but in general, one per week. And I'm going to be posting each chapter in print on Substack. I'll provide the link to that below. The written chapters will sometimes have more detail than the videos, and you'll get the next chapter on Substack a week in advance of YouTube. So you'll want to subscribe to my Substack page. When we've gone through all the chapters, this will all be published in book form. I don't know who's going to publish it yet, or if I'll do it myself. Publishers are scared to take this project on because their favorite color is beige, and they're looking for a formula that feels comfortable. And there's no book remotely like this that opens with the creation of the angels and proceeds directly to the Big Bang. So it's a little too wild for them, but we'll see. I set the Substack subscription to the lowest price they'll allow, which is $5 a month or $30 for a year. There are 80 chapters in Volume 1 alone, mostly short, but there are 80 chapters, so you'll want to get the yearly subscription. Your support will help me build this project into a real franchise, hopefully. And if this crazy adventure is successful enough, the first 10 or 100 or 1,000 or whatever Substack subscribers will get perks, I hope, like signed, hand-numbered first editions, with the lowest numbers going to whoever was first in line to subscribe or be a founding member. And the more successful this series becomes, the better the other perks will be. So subscribe soon and spread the word. Also, if this franchise does take off, I'll need writers, illustrators, musicians, and other talent to help out. And you'll get higher priority for consideration if you're an early Substack subscriber or a founding member. Okay, let's start. But where do we start in these chaotic, confusing, and violent times? Where does the path to meaning truly begin, if there even is such a path? Let's find out. It's best to start such an important journey, the most important journey of all, at the beginning, and there's only one beginning that has nothing prior to it in any conceivable order. That seems like a good place to start, since you can't back up any farther than that. You'll have to wait till chapter 11 to find out explicitly what it is, but there are major hints along the way, including what you're about to see next. So, let's begin. The Father of all is the author of the story I'm about to tell you, dear mother, since you ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and desired to know all things. He's not the author of this book you hold, mind you. That would be a child of yours thousands of years into your future. But he is the author of space and time and all it contains, the author of history. And history is a story, and like all stories, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And despite what some of your children say, it has a destiny, a glorious destiny, even if he graciously allows you and I, with all the beauty and tragedy in our hearts, to contribute our own pages. I suppose I should tell you why this particular child, an adventurer named Olive, is writing this particular story of everything for you. It all started when the angel Gabriel came to me. He's the angel who hid this book in your land of wandering east of the gates of Eden, far from the fiery revolving sword that guards the way to the tree of life. Gabriel showed you the secret opening in the cave of treasures where this book had been hidden since before you were born, and is the one who taught you how to read it. And it was Gabriel who gave me this task. It happened in a time of distress when my thoughts terrified me. For many days I went without food or sleep. At night I counted every tick of the clock until daylight chased away the horrors of the night. During the cold light of day I longed for the night to envelop me in darkness, when again my mind would restlessly cast about like a beam from a lighthouse, suffocated by fog. I spent my days like a wanderer, without a map, without shores, without continents, without a past or a future. One day my head was reeling to the chaotic noise of the television. It was belching forth a toxic cloud of lies, idolatry, hatred, murder, and lust, with ads for pharmaceuticals to numb the pain. People were barking at each other, calling each other insane over politics or religion or nothing at all, but they were certainly angrily on the right side. I no longer wanted to be on a side. I just wanted to know something true. I shut off the noise and went outside the gate to clear my head. The cool air and silence lured me to the edge of a hill that dropped steeply into a dense strip of forest that embraced train tracks and a river beyond. I picked up a long stick that I used to beat back the dense thorn bushes, carefully making my way down the long slope. But it had rained earlier in the day, and my feet slipped on the wet clay. I went sliding and then crashing into the dense underbrush of the dark forest. I landed, scraped and bruised, on a small bit of ledge, not far from the gravel ditch that ran alongside the train tracks. My forehead was scratched and bleeding, but the cool air in this dark patch I found myself in was invigorating. I pulled a thorn out of my hand. My clothes were filthy, but I didn't mind. I looked at my surroundings in the purple misty light, my panting breath mixing with the twilight gloaming. It was that time of the year when the first leaves were starting to fall. I was in a damp patch of horsetail reeds. The fingers of dead tree branches reached down like black lightning, forming a dense cocoon around me. With my right hand anchored on a knotted mossy tree root, I looked through a small opening in the dense limbs above my left shoulder and could see the evening star faintly shining. In front of me, across the tracks, was the gray water of the river gently flowing north. Beyond the river, the sun was setting behind a bank of dark hills and steely cloud. Looking at the river beyond, with sweat dripping down my face, I saw a dirty plastic bottle with a blue label bobbing along, and I suddenly felt thirsty. The river water was obviously unfit to drink, and I didn't feel like leaving my cocoon and crossing the tracks to get there anyway, so I sat and let the darkening mist overtake me. Maybe this is enough, I thought, and it was, for the moment. When my heart was still, I listened, eyes closed. I could hear the faint sound of the falling leaves clicking against branches as they gave up the ghost. Small creatures slithering or scurrying, water trickling down the ditch, ducks and geese making their southerly trip along the river, unidentifiable machinery, perhaps a ship or a buoy in the far distance, crickets and frogs, a propeller plane somewhere above my head, and a passenger jet high above the plane, 100 souls streaking slowly across the sky. I could smell the wet clay, decaying foliage, moss, mushrooms, and ancient wood. I opened my eyes and saw a small scarlet butterfly papering along. But is this enough? Can I know more than just this moment? Is there something enduring behind all these changing things? Do they have an origin? Do they have an end? And what about me? Where do I fit? Feeling an unnatural chill at my back, I turned to see what was behind me. I saw a small hole in the sloping earth leading into deep darkness. I suddenly felt cold. In a spontaneous moment of daring, I reached into the darkness to confront my terror. I half expected a snapping growl, but there was nothing. A nothing so chilling I could scarcely believe that my arm still existed when I pulled it out. Then I heard a freight train far to the north sounding its warning in a nearby town. I decided to wait in my dark cocoon for the train. My anticipation built as the rumbling steadily grew. Then I saw the light of the train moving southward through the forest like a specter. I felt safe, hidden in the brush. I could see it, but it couldn't see me. But it seemed like the train was almost on top of me when it rushed by with a shockwave of thundering metal and hissing hydraulics and the clamor of cars rattling down the tracks. When the train passed and faded into a deep rumble, I could smell burnt diesel lingering in the air, and I wondered where the train came from and where it was going and why anything moves at all and why anything exists at all, and I cried. Then I remembered a story I recently heard about humanity's first parents, about you, Mother, how you saw forbidden fruit, and you reached for the secret too soon. But still, you gained wisdom, or at least I think you did. So I prayed to God in the collapsing dark of the forest, admitting to him my ignorance in a world that has lost its ability to educate the young of heart. I asked that he teach me, beginning at the true beginning. Please, God, if you exist, show me. I feel like I know nothing at all. I want to start over. Teach me like you taught Eve. After this, I began to make the arduous climb back up, but my body was too weak. So I found a relatively dry patch of moss and slept with the restless night creatures under an arching crown of blackberry shrubs, waiting for the cold to send me to sleep forever. A bright light awoke me. Another train? But there was no sound. Where are you? A gentle but strong voice called through the light high overhead. I was hoping you could tell me, sir, I'm lost. I'd say you're about half a mile from your bed, where you should be. Oh, I thought I was much farther away. Everyone thinks that, he said, until they get back up on their feet and walk. I replied, but what good is a bed if I can't sleep? You need much more than sleep, he said. You're starving, physically, intellectually, spiritually, as is your whole civilization. You must eat and drink. But I don't know the way back. A light will guide you through the forest back to your home. Who are you, sir? I am Gavriel. You have admitted your ignorance in a world of shouting, he announced, and so you have been chosen to hear the quiet one. Do not fear any longer, my child. From the moment you made up your mind to acquire understanding and humble yourself before God, your prayer was heard. Because of it, I started out. After Gavriel said this, I was too awestruck and disoriented to respond. The words I needed escaped me, so I stammered the first words I could think of. And who am I? He said, You are anyone who takes up the task I am giving you. We've been waiting for someone who will take this journey through space and time, someone who admits to knowing nothing and who is curious about everything. Are there others? I asked. Yes, there are many others. In a way, you could say that you are them and they are you. I asked, Is it even possible to know everything? You can't know everything, but you can know what everything is, and you can know the essence of every kind of thing. Indeed, you and your whole generation can and must learn what is indispensable for the human person. Above all, you must learn what is the meaning of life. But know that humility unlocks the mysteries of wisdom, because to learn, you must admit that you lack something. Knowledge can be very dangerous for the ego. It can cause even the wisest to fall. And if your learning is not accompanied by humility and a loving heart, it cannot bring you the happiness you are looking for. To avoid the danger of pride, you must see wisdom as a gift borrowed from God. It must always return to Him, just as it always comes from Him. I asked Gavriel, How will I know what is true? It will be beautiful and delightful to contemplate. The truth is joyful. It draws you out of yourself and upward into a beauty that is far beyond you and shows you how all things, from great to small, are related to each other and form one great melodious symphony of the truth. That is how you'll know. But beyond the knowledge of every kind of thing, there is the truth of history, which because of evil will not always be pleasant to meditate on. If you go on this journey, you will see great and terrible things, things that will make you wish you had never set out. You will see even the origin of evil. But if you keep a quiet, listening, and patient heart, you will see a majesty in the whole drama of history that far exceeds your expectations. However, if you lack such a heart, you will see nothing, and you will convince yourself that this nothing is true. But the very fact that you admitted your ignorance suggests to me that you have a docile and ready heart, courageous and open, but desirous enough not to settle for anything less than the real, for only the truth is worth believing. Docile? I asked. Receptive, he said. Now listen, you need an occupation. Yes, I do, sir, but I don't know what I want to do, or if there's anything I'm good at. I don't know where I belong, or where I'm supposed to be, or what I'm supposed to do. I'm terrified. I didn't know it was possible to feel this bad. There are no words to describe the pain my brain is in. No one would believe it. I don't even believe it. There's no way out for me except to die. He replied, It's not your time to die. I know you feel alone in your pain, but you're not. Everyone has some kind of profound suffering, grief, regret, or tragedy in their life. But just like a railroad track has two rails, you can have a second rail of joy and happiness that will always accompany you and even eternally outlast the suffering, which will one day end. In fact, the happiest people who have ever lived also endured the most suffering and self-sacrifice. Now, are you willing to give up everything to accept the task I have for you? It's a big task, the biggest. I have nothing, sir. I will do all that you ask. You genuinely desire wisdom, don't you? Yes, sir, I replied, trying my best to hold back tears. And you admit that you truly have none? Yes, sir, very truly, sir. I am sending you the angel of wisdom, the quiet angel, although this angel can be quite loud on a busy street corner. You yourself must write in your own book, in your own words, what you see, for you are as simple and untutored as the one for whom you are to write. But unlike her, you have seen 1,000 generations of her children, and so you, like the rest of humanity, are responsible for the experience these generations have gained and the knowledge they have passed on. The time for the fulfillment of all things is near, so you must write all that you see and hear. When you have finished, I will bring the book to Hava. Who is Hava? Eve, he replied, the mother of the human race. Hava is her Hebrew name. You said you wanted to learn, to know, like Hava. Yes, sir, I did. With that, Gabrielle disappeared, and I was cold and alone, with only my moonlit breath as company. I began to become afraid again, wondering in my loneliness if I had in fact lost my mind. But then a miracle of warm reassurance flooded my heart. The scarlet butterfly reappeared, glowing like a nightlight. It flew a short distance up the ridge and paused, as if beckoning me. I got up on all fours. It continued to wait. I felt a renewed strength and stood on my feet. It moved forward, shining like a toy. It led me upward along a path that seemed to be freshly cut. When I reached the top of the hill, the butterfly led me as far as the gate, where it perched itself for the night. When I got back to my bed, I flopped on the mattress, still in my dirty clothes, embraced by a comfort I hadn't known before, and I fell peacefully asleep. When I woke up the next day, I bathed, put on fresh clothes, and ate a full, healthy meal. My strength returned, and I recalled all that Gabrielle had said. I even laughed for the first time in a long time. And that, Mother, is how Gabrielle commissioned me to write this particular version of the story of our planet, of our galaxy, of our universe, as one who reports to his anxious mother the welfare of her children, which you're going to have a lot of, by the way. And there is no story better, more epic, more meaningful than the real one, which even 1,000,000 books couldn't contain, because it's the saga in which every one of us plays a starring role. A few days after the vision, while walking along the path through the orchard by my house, I contemplated among the fallen apples where one should begin knowing good and evil, and I wondered if the forbidden tree still exists, and if it's still forbidden, and if I could ever find its fruit, Mother, would I gain more knowledge than you? Then I heard these words, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth." I had never read the Bible before, but I knew these words were at the beginning, and they had something to do with you and Adam. Focusing on these words, my mind turned to the heavens, whatever those are, and the beginning of history. But how can I tell things only the angels have seen? I can't start there unless someone takes me there. "Gabrielle, come back," I asked among the trees. "I need your help." For several days there was no answer, but I waited patiently, trusting in the vision I had seen. "Mother, there is a point on earth far from your sunny home where there is an expanse of snow as vast as the ocean, and if you stand in just the right spot, there is no north or east or west. The sun sets on this icy point once a year, not to return for 6 months. It was this very night, the evening of the year, that I locked myself in my closet, in the secret chamber of my imagination. While listening to Thursday Afternoon, sitting cross-legged among rolled-up sleeping bags, old transformers, Christmas lights, and the game of life, after some time, I'm not sure how long, the roof disappeared and the walls fell down. I found myself sitting at that icy point on top of the world, in the purple and orange light cast by a sun that had just disappeared on the wide, flat horizon. There I sat alone in the dry, frozen air, but I was not cold. I closed my eyes, and to the muffled sound of gently compacting snow, laid on my back with arms and legs outstretched and made a snow angel. Then I just lay there and imagined the earth turning beneath me. I almost fell asleep, but then I heard the sound of celestial trumpets filling the sky, an eerie alarm, like it was the end of the world or the beginning of a new one. For a brief moment, I lost all consciousness, as if I had never existed. Then a warm light crept through my eyelids.